Welcome back, it's Zion from Uke on Demand, and this week we're going over Waltz in G major. We're going to go over the first part of the tutorial in this video, but you can get the rest of the tutorial and all the tabs at ukeondemand.com. So to begin, we're going to start out in a G chord, and I'll play the first two measures so you can hear them in context. So it's pretty simple. You get to make a G chord position and essentially keep it there the whole time. So in case you don't know, a G chord is going to use the index finger on the second fret of the C, the middle finger on the second fret of the A, and ring finger on the third fret of the E. And we're going to strum it once. And leaving the chord there, we're going to pick the C string followed by the E string, and then pick them together, and finally pick the A string. So all together. That's measure 1. Measure 2 is exactly the same, so you just repeat that one more time. And after that, going into measure 3, we've got 3 different chords in this measure. We're going to start out with A minor 7, and that'll look like this. And you might have heard A minor 7 being all open strings, and that is correct, but this is just a different fingering of A minor 7. We're going to have the index finger on the 3rd fret of A, ring finger on the 5th fret of the E, and middle finger on the 4th fret of the C. We're going to strum this chord once. As soon as we've done that, we're going to drop down into a bar chord. We're just going to be barring the 2nd fret, and this will be a B minor 7. And you can also, if you have a little trouble with bar chords, can do a double bar. It's not the best option to use, but if you need to make it work in a pinch, this is totally fine. It's where you stack your middle finger on top of your index to get some sort of extra pressure, making sure the thumb is right beneath there to get the most squeezing power. Alright, but either way, you're just going to strum it once. And then we're going to go into a D7, and this, you probably know this chord already. It's just second, open, second, open. So those 3 chords one more time. And then finally into a G chord. And this measure is exactly the same as the first 2, except for the final note. So we strum C string and E string, and together. Now instead of just picking the A, we're still going to pick the A string, but instead of it being the 2nd fret, we're going to reach our pinky up to the 5th fret right here. And that will launch us into the 2nd bar. Now bar 2 right here, we're going to be playing, start out in an E minor. Now you might be used to E minor being down here, and that's correct, but in this case, we're going to be playing E minor up here, and it's going to be just barring the first 3 strings at the 7th fret, so that's just C, E, and A. G string is still open. And we strum once. And we follow a similar picking pattern. We're going to start with C and E. Of course, leaving the chord where it is. And then those 2 strings together. And then pinky comes to the 10th fret of the E string, and you pick that once. So all together, strum, and then pick. Alright, and that is measure 5. Measure 6 is exactly the same, so you just do that one more time. And then here we are going to move into a D7 but it's going to look a little bit different. It might look a little bit cramped, but I'm going to show you some alternate fingerings that might be a little bit easier for you. So you can do the full version, which looks like this. You're essentially barring the 7th fret all the way. You have your pinky on 9th fret of A, middle finger on 8th fret of E, and ring finger on the 9th fret of the C. All right, but this pattern is, or this chord is quite tricky to get into. So there's another way to simplify it down. So you went into that chord from this position. Now what you can do instead is just pick the 9th fret of A and the 8th fret of E. Just those two now, not the others. And that can be a substitute for doing the entire chord if we just do those two notes. Either way is correct. Of course, this way will be a little easier, a little more comfortable, but it will sound a little bit more full if you can do the entire chord. But either way, it's just an 8th note, so once we do that, I'm just going to pick the 7th fret of A into a barred version of D7. Now we just did D7 down here a minute ago, but this is going to still be a D7, but it looks slightly different. We're going to be barring the 5th fret and have our middle finger on the 6th fret of C. Strum that chord once, and then moving to the next chord, we're going to have an F sharp. And this might look a little bit complicated. It's going to be barring the 1st fret with the index finger, pinky on the 4th fret of A, and ring finger on the 3rd fret of G, and and middle on the 2nd fret of the E. Now this chord is tricky to get into. So these just so you can hear it in context, it would sound like this. We go D7, F sharp, into a B minor. Now there you can, if you want to make it simpler, after you do that D7, you can just pick the 4th fret of A before going into the B minor. But it will sound a lot better if you can get that full chord in there. So even if it's trickier, it's definitely worth the time. And that after we strum that F sharp, then we come in, we get to keep most of this shape. We're just going to slide it up 1 fret, like that, and remove the middle finger only. And then boom, we're already in our B minor position that we need to be in. And so we strum that once. And just so you can hear everything in context, let's back it up to the beginning of this measure, and I'll play through very slowly, and let's see if you can play along. That will bring us to the beginning of measure 8. To get the rest of the tutorial and all the tabs, head over to ukeondemand.com and make sure to subscribe below so you don't miss our upcoming fingerstyle tutorials. We'll see you next time.